Hello everyone, I'll go over Fabiano Caruana's game from yesterday's round 4 of the US Championship. After the first 3 rounds he was sharing first place with Akobian and Wesley So. He had a great start. He drew the first game and then won in round 2 and 3. And in this round, in round 4, he faced Zviad Izoria, who is 200 points lower rated, so Fabiano Caruana was a huge favorite, and Izoria is about 25.99 I think, and Caruana is now already over 2800, so he was pretty much expected to win by most people, and in order to stay on the top in the tournament he had to win. He opened with pawn to e4, and Izoria plays e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and now not the Ruy Lopez by Fabiano Caruana, he plays the Italian, the Giuoco Piano, and Izoria plays the main move, bishop to c5, c3, knight to f6, d3, d6. These are all main moves of the Giuoco Piano or the Gioco Pianissimo. And after white castles, in this position Zviad Izoria deviated from the main position. The main move here is a6 to prepare bishop a7, and after bishop to b3, bishop a7, knight b to d2, black castling. And the second most common move after white castling is black castling, and that transposes to the position we saw before after a6. After bishop to b3, a6, knight b d2, bishop to a7. So this is the most common plan. But after Fabiano Caruana castled, Izoria played h6, which, okay, is preventing the pin on the g4 square, it's preventing the g5 square, it's preventing the knight from jumping into g5, and it's in fact not bad. The position is still equal, but it's just a slightly uncommon move. The other two moves have several thousand games played, and h6 only has 20 games, so a very uncommon continuation. Fabiano plays rook to e1, Zviad Izoria castles, and now h3, a5, aggressively pushing on the queen side. Now knight b to d2, finishing development. And now Caruana is starting the common idea, the common knight maneuver in the Ruy Lopez and in some Italian positions as well, and that's from b1 to d2, d2 f1, f1 g3, and thus attacking the f5 square. So this is a very common maneuver in these positions. And if you imagine the bishop being on b3 and this bishop being on e7 or on b7, and this would be a standard closed Ruy Lopez line. Now a4 by Izoria, continuing his queenside push, knight to f1, bishop to d7, d4 striking in the center, and this was White's main plan. However, in this position it wasn't the best. He could have continued developing normally, but d4 is not bad either, and the position is equal. White managed to achieve his central pawn break, but it doesn't do that much after he had achieved it. Now bishop to b6. Better was to play bishop to a7. It's always much safer, and that's usually the plan in these Italian positions, but Izoria figured that bishop to b6 would be safer, perhaps trying to defend the a4 pawn, which is now overextended, and if bishop to a7, perhaps queen takes a4 could work. Even though I doubt it, because the knight can discover on the queen the attack from the bishop, and if the bishop takes d4 as well, then the queen would be attacked, so I'm sure that Caruana wouldn't have taken a4. However, after bishop to b6, knight to g3, finishing his knight maneuver, rook to e8 developing, and bishop to f1. This is also a very common plan, because you are preparing to expand on the queen side, you are solidifying your kingside pawn structure. Black now has no chance to sacrifice on h3 in any positions, and this just makes more room for your more active pieces at the moment. And now Izoria played a move I just can't understand. He played queen to b8, and when I was analyzing the position, I turned the engine on in this position to figure out what this move was about, and the engines actually like the move. However, what's commonly problems with the engines, even though they like something, you can't always know why. And I was looking at this move for a while, and I'm still not sure. I was actually thinking that he was preparing a maneuver with knight to d8, knight to e6, and then doing something with the knight, but then d5 would just make that plan impossible, so I wasn't sure what the point of that was. And after d5 he actually played knight to e7, so I don't understand queen to b8 at all. Now knight to h4 is played, preparing to enter the f5 square. Of course that's not yet possible, because White never wants to play knight to f5, and after knight takes, bishop takes, e takes, doubling his pawns and letting black have a strong pawn in the center. So after Izoria made a mistake, king to h7, which is too slow, Fabiano Caruana actually first played queen to f3, and reinforcing the f5 square. So after queen to f3 we have queen to d8. Now for some reason putting the queen back. I I don't understand why. Once again, I didn't understand queen to b8 either. Perhaps someone can explain it in the comments below if you have an idea. Now bishop to d2, and in this position Fabiano stands slightly better, and he has better development. You can see that he has more space for his pieces, and he actually has an attacking plan with coming into f5. Of course, g6 would kill that at any moment, but black on the other hand doesn't have anything. The queen is useless on d8, the rook is blocked, the knight has no good squares, the other knight is okay active, but that's the only active piece with the bishop on b6, so I would say that white's pieces are much better than black's. And now knight e to g8, and knight h to f5, and now white's position is pretty dominant. You can see that he has a lot of attacking opportunities. After g6 this weakens black's position, but it forces the knight back. However, it goes to e3, it doesn't return to h4. Now king to g7, knight to c4, attacking the bishop, and now bishop to a7. And that's why bishop to a7 should have been played in the first place, because in many Italian positions, after the bishop retreats to f1 or does something, exchanges or on e6 or something else, the knight on c4 is a common maneuver. Even from d2, it doesn't have to be from e3. Now bishop to e3, exchanging, offering a trade of bishops. Bishop takes, queen takes, and now knight to h7, perhaps trying to push g5 or h5, g5. And in this position, Caruana made an imprecise move, which, okay, it's aggressive, it does something, but it weakens white's position as well. He played f4. To suggest a better move would be pretty hard, because you can see that white's pieces are perfectly placed in this position, and he has to open up the position in order to be able to attack. So f4 is justified, but it's not as precise as some other moves. The best move would have been knight to d2, trying to include the knight back into the attack, and then perhaps play f4, but f4 is okay. It doesn't lose that much of the advantage. Now b5, knight to d2, e takes f4, queen takes f4, and queen to f6. And now Caruana declines the trade of queens, queen to e3, knight to e7. And now black has equalized, he even stands slightly better, but practically speaking, I still think I would rather have the white pieces. And white is positionally worse only because of the e4 pawn, which is backwards and hard to defend, but it doesn't really mean anything yet. Now queen to f3, offering a threat of queens now, rook a to b8, a3, blocking the position down, c5. Rook a to d1. By the way, taking en passant would be unwise in this position. You would activate white's knight on this square, and that would be completely losing. If you take en passant, knight takes c6, and then when the knight comes to e5, you can resign the game. So rook a to d1, knight to c8, rerouting the knight once more to the b6 square, queen e3, knight to b6, knight to f3. A lot of maneuvering, but that's usual in Italian and Spanish positions. And now, of course, if black ever jumps into c4, then the bishop would immediately take. You can't allow this knight to stay on c4. Knight to g5, knight to h2, declining the trade, knight to h7. Now a bit of maneuvering and a bit of repetition after a while. So queen to g5, queen f2, queen to f6, queen to e3, queen to g5, and now queen to f3, declining a trade and a repetition. And this move is slightly imprecise by Caruana, and there was a way to punish this move, and that would be with h5. And white would be in a bit of trouble, because black is fast to chase the knights away from the position, and perhaps even sacrifice the bishop on h3, and definitely place the knight on g5. So this was the way for black to gain a slight initiative. But after queen to f3, Zviad Izoria played queen to f6, which is just equal immediately, and gives Caruana an opportunity to exchange the queens. He played bishop to d3 first, and now Zviad exchanges queens with queen takes f3, knight takes, and he played f6. And now, of course, once again, you can see that black's position is better for one simple reason, and that's the fact that the d6 weakness is not as weak as the weakness on e4. And this pawn is now becoming really hard to defend, and with f6 he stopped it from moving. He made it completely immovable for the rest of the game. Now Caruana continues with h4, preventing the knight from coming into g5, h5, king to f2, getting closer to the center, knight to f8, and now knight to d2. Once again rerouting and adding more support to the e4 pawn, knight to c8, changing plans with the knight again, rook to b1, knight to e7, knight g to f1, knight to g8. And all of these maneuvers are hard to understand, and of course both sides are looking for a single opportunity to enter a single square with one of their knights, so this maneuvering is provocation from both sides. And one mistake could mean a lot, of course. One weak square could lose the game, so both of them are pretty careful not to blunder anything. And this knight is now preparing to go to e3 or to g3 or to h2, and all squares could be okay, and white just has to find a normal plan of attack, and black has to do the same. So I think this knight is now going to h6 and preparing to enter g4. However, if white tries to prevent that, then it would cost him a lot of time. So let's say if the knight went to g8, me as white would usually think of knight to h2 first to stop knight to g4. So these are the type of maneuvers that they are thinking about, but you can never decipher what's everything they were trying to do with their maneuvers. However, Caruana continues with knight to e3, knight to h6, bishop to e2, preparing to capture the knight with the bishop. The bishop was stuck behind the e4 pawn anyway. f5, an aggressive move by Izoria, but it's a good move. b3, a takes b3, rook takes b3, and now this made a permanent weakness in white's position, and that's the a3 pawn. And the pawn will be pretty hard to defend after black pushes c4, which he does immediately. And now you can see that after rook to b4, the a3 pawn is very hard to defend. We have f takes e4. This is now going a pawn up, but only temporarily, because white can recapture if he wishes to. Rook e to b1, attacking the pawn twice, and of course threatening to take the c4 pawn. And if b takes c4, the rook is hanging, of course, because it's attacked twice. So we have rook to a8, attacking a3, and now a4. He has to give up the pawn. Now after rook a4. Rook a4, b takes a4, knight d takes c4, and in this position black is of course one pawn up, but still it's slightly better for white even, because the e4 pawn is now weak for black, and the a4 pawn is weak as well, and not to mention the d6 weakness, which has been weak since the start of the game. Now knight to f7, rook to b7, attacking the bishop, king to f6, bishop to d1. Now once more a lot of maneuvering, rook to a8, adding support to the a pawn, knight to b6, attacking it twice and attacking the bishop as well, so he has to react, rook to d8. And now Caruana didn't take the pawn, he played a much better move, knight e to c4, adding more support to the knight, attacking d6, and this pawn can be taken at some point anyway, even though it was attacked twice by the bishop and by the knight. Now bishop to b5, knight to d2, bishop to d3, king to e3, getting the king closer to the center, knight to e5, and now once again it's equal, but one single mistake could mean a lot here. And you can see that black has centralized his pieces menacingly, but the pawns seem to be dropping off. Of course, in this position white can't take the e4 pawn because the knight has two checking squares, and that could mean a lot of trouble, but something else can be done, and Caruana takes on a4 first. Now g5, h takes g5, king takes g5, knight takes e4. He does now take because it's with check, bishop e4, king to e4, and now knight f2 to g6. And now if you count the material, white is a pawn up. It's rook, knight and bishop versus rook and two knights, and that's theoretically a draw now, and one pawn shouldn't be enough for Caruana to win. However, black's knights seem to be more active than the bishop, and the rook seems to be more active anyway. So knight to d7, rook to c8, bishop to c6, giving the pawn back. He has to prevent black from taking on c3, knight c6, dc6, rook c6. Now the material is equal, but black's king is closer to the pawns which can't be defended by the pieces. That seems to be an absurd statement, but the black king can easily herd the h5 pawn, then the white king can herd the g2 pawn. So that will lead to trouble for Caruana. Now king to d4 is played, knight to f4, c4. Knight takes g2, he had to give up the pawn, there was no other way, and now king to d5, and that was the first mistake. Of course, this position is a draw, and Caruana should have played rook to b5, and after king to g6, there is no way for black to easily advance in this position, and white would end up sacrificing the knight for the last pawn, and that would be it. You can see that in this position the king can even capture the pawn, so it's just a complete draw. However, after what Caruana played, and he played king to d5, and Izoria playing rook to c8, this is the mistake that actually lost the game. Even without rook to b5 check, he could have survived, but with his next move, it was completely lost, whatever he did afterwards. And he played knight to b6. And this move seems logical, actually. It seems okay, it's gaining a tempo on the rook. However, after knight to e3 check and king to e6, rook to c6, the position is just busted. And king to d7, trying to attack the rook. Knight c4, a very nice tactical trick by Zoria. And of course now white should take the rook, even though it's losing, because that's the best move. And now after rook takes, king takes c6, a simple tactical move, knight to a5 check. And of course the king can't keep defending the rook because the c7 square is taken by the pawn. So king takes, knight takes, and now you can see what I was talking about. This king is much faster to hurt the h5 pawn, and if the king was over here, then the position would be a draw. This way it's completely losing and there's no way to stop the defeat. The best try was king to e5, that way you could prolong the suffering. But Caruana played king to d5, which is immediately losing, and now after king to f4, just blocking out the white king from entering the corner. Knight to c4, h4, knight to d2. Caruana is trying to get his knight into a spot from which it can sacrifice itself, but it's impossible. h3, knight to f1. Now, of course, if black pushes the pawn, then Caruana would take, but he plays knight to d8, and he's preparing to block out the king with his knight. So now king to d4, knight to f7, king to d5, he can't enter the position, knight to e5, king to d4, knight to g4, king to d3, king to f3, and now after king to d4, Caruana actually resigned with his own move, and there's no way to stop black from just coming to f2 and chasing the knight away, and after that, after the pawn gets to h2, that's it, queening. So he resigned, and I have to say that I was very surprised when I was watching the game. Of course, I thought the position would be a draw. I wasn't happy about that, but in this position, when he managed to get his knight, let me just check where that move is. Not here, but before this. In the position where he had his knights staring at f5 and he had a much better position, I think that he had a chance to go for a victory, and I can't understand what happened that made his position that much worse after only 10 or 20 moves. Of course, here white has an edge, and white has the only attack. Black's pieces are completely blocked in behind the pawn chain, and it's very unlike Caruana to blunder a position such as this one, especially an endgame which is a complete draw. To lose so badly is just a mystery. To me, this position is still a draw, and 10 moves later he resigned. So very unfortunate for Caruana, especially because he was in first place after 3 rounds. Now he is in 4th place, and he will have to work a lot harder to win the US Championship, which I still believe he will. But a disappointing result for him and for his fans, definitely. Okay, everybody, thanks very much for watching. I hope you like this not as good Giuoco Piano by Fabiano Caruana, and stay tuned for more chess. Thanks very much. Bye.